And the more you actually take ownership of this union, the more protected you are against any attack from management.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's explain for people what is union busting. And I'll go to Johnny Lane to kick us off with that.
Yes, because I feel like my company has perfected union busting in the 30 plus years they've been trying to keep out a union at Delta. Union busting is exactly what it sounds like. It's the company trying to come in and dissuade workers from forming a union, and that's by any means necessary. Some of us have discussed captive audience meetings where their management comes in. You could be there with food, drinks, whatever, your other coworkers, and someone just starts talking about why it's bad to have a union, why it's scary. Some of the language that you may hear is no more open door policy. You won't be able to speak with management directly anymore. We're a family. Why would you want a third party to come in and disrupt the family atmosphere? One of my favorites that my company uses is preserving our culture, which is, being from the South, those types of terms are rooted in white supremacy. So when you hear things like that, it can get kind of scary and your radar should go up. But those are just a few things that you may see at the beginning for them to kind of put in your mind that, oh, maybe having a union is bad. Food is often something that they'll use, like, oh, we're a family, we're providing you with pizza or ice cream. So it could seem like it's very harmless, but a lot of these tactics are very insidious. And that's just some of the beginning of union busting that you may see when you start your campaign. Delta's known for some of their very public ads that have gotten around in recent years. One of the more famous ones is instead of paying $50 for dues, you could buy a $700 PlayStation. The dues that you would spend in a year would go to buying a PlayStation or Braves tickets. And so it was just incredibly insulting that they would think that even like $50 that people were saving up for things like that they could spend that instead. Somehow that would have a PlayStation or a Braves tickets would have more value than collective bargaining power in the workplace. But unfortunately, some people do fall for it.
Yeah, one of the things that they said is that, dues might be $500 a year or something, and that you could buy a PlayStation with that instead. And I think it was either the AFL-CIO or the AFA that tweeted, also you could construct a guillotine. And then they deleted that post because, I don't know, somebody got a little too scared. And that is a critique that I have of the social media policy of some unions. They're not radical enough. They do not lean into the edgelord stuff enough. I think more guillotine imagery. That's my take. But we've mentioned this earlier in the show, the captive audience meetings. And Michelle, you touched on that really, and it's really intimidating. What are some of the things that they'll tell you in these captive audience meetings that you're forced to go to, or you could potentially lose your job?
So the first thing I'm going to say is that the company will never refer to them as a captive audience meeting. They like to call them things like listening sessions, which is what Starbucks corporate like to call them. They'll also like to tell you that they're not mandatory. However, you're paid to attend. And so if you're an hourly worker working paycheck to paycheck, and the option is go to this 1 hour meeting, because in most cases, the stores are shut down for these meetings. And so you're told, hey, your shift for that day is canceled. We're shutting the store down because we're having these listening sessions. So you can come to this 1 hour listening session and be paid for your entire shift that you were scheduled for. But if you don't come to this 1 hour listening session, then you're not paid for that shift. So you can say they're not mandatory, but the reality of the situation is you're dealing with hourly workers who need this income. And so their only option is to attend that listening session or that captive audience meeting. Then they start off very innocuous. The company narrative here in Buffalo was that this was coincidental, that all of these management and corporate were in Buffalo at just mere days after the filing of the first few union petitions. They had heard that there were problems in our market, and they were here to address them and to fix them. And they didn't know why things were so bad here, but none of the problems happening at the Starbucks stores in Buffalo were happening anywhere else in the country. So something had just happened, something had gone wrong here in Buffalo. And they were here to address that and to fix it, because this wasn't the true Starbucks experience. We weren't getting the true Starbucks experience, and they wanted to fix that for us. So that's how those meetings start out. And they'll get through, 50 minutes of talking at you. And then the last 10 they'll reserve for, well, we also wanted to address this union campaign. And they'll slowly work that into the conversation about how they don't feel like it's necessary. It will destroy the partner-to-partner relationship that we've, spent 50 years cultivating in the company. And they're going to fix all of the issues, which, by the way, the NLRA, the National Labor Relations Act, says they can't do. When a union campaign starts, one of the things that has to be maintained is what is called laboratory conditions, which means they can't come into a shop that's trying to organize, and they can't make things better, and they can't make things worse. So coming in at the start of a union campaign and saying we're going to fix all of the problems is actually not legal. But they frame that as a way, but we're here to take care of everything so that we can just let this pesky union campaign go. You don't have to worry about it. And those meetings get more and more aggressive the closer you get to the vote, to the point where the last couple, I actually wasn't permitted to attend the last listening session for Elmwood, because at that point they were dividing the store up into, very vocal union supporters and not so vocal union supporters. And the meeting that I wanted to attend had some not so vocal union supporters. And when I showed up, they said, "Oh, you're not able to stay for this meeting." Mm-hmm. So they get more and more aggressive, and they basically say, "Hey, we don't want a union. We want everybody to vote," because not voting to them is the equivalent of a yes vote in a lot of cases. And we want you all to vote no. I mean, it's that blatant. It's not, it's not even thinly veiled at this point.
Right.
And it can get really scary and really intimidating. And you have to, sort of be prepared to stand up and speak for your coworkers and call them out on their incredible lies and misinformation. It was one of the scariest things I've ever done. Sitting there, their third party narrative is also very, very, very strong. To echo what Johnny said, they like to say, we're just giving you the facts, and if you want to get facts on the union, then you should you should contact one of your union reps. And that very first meeting, I raised my hand and I said, well, I'm one of the organizing members, and I would be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. And my heart was pounding out of my chest. I mean, there wasn't a single meeting I sat at where my Apple Watch didn't give me a high heart rate notification. And we need to take that into account when workers are trying to organize, the mental and physical toll that they're put through simply for trying to exercise what is their right under the law in this country.
And all of this by people that hold their paycheck in their hands, right? I mean, this is a really, really big deal for folks. And one of the things that they'll tell people at retail stores and at restaurants like Starbucks and like REI is they're going to close your store if you organize. Graham, how did you address that because I'm assuming that came up, or there were implications in your campaign in New York. How did y'all speak to that concern?
So we actually didn't hear anything about closing the store from corporate in New York. The Soho location, it's a flagship store. It's in the Puck building, so it's a very historic location. It's almost like one of the prize gems of REI's the national company. So there wasn't really anything about store closure. But I can definitely agree with Michelle about the experience of sitting through these captive audience meetings and, being I think there was like for some people the fear of like being vocal, and like you might not lose your store location, but people being scared of like being fired for being vocal. But the more vocal you are, the more you are protected by the National Labor Relations Act. And that's something that we really, really tried to hit home during these captive audience meetings. And it actually resulted in there was not a single captive audience meeting that REI ran where there was not just belligerent pushback from, several members of staff. So yeah, we didn't really run into the store closure thing, but people were afraid of being fired for their beliefs, for wanting this right of organizing at work. And we made it very, very clear that this is safe. It is essential that we push back on management, and that the more vocal you are and the more you actually take ownership of this union, the more protected you are against any attack from management.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.